Hello, welcome back. So in our previous video, we talked about the get HTTP request method for sending data, and we did a number of examples, and we tried to break it down and understand it. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to look at the second HTTP request method, which is post. Okay, so in our previous example, we are going to do in the previous video we looked at the how you can send data from one page even to another page using the gate. So in today's video, we are going to look at a number of things. The first one, we are going to look at using post. Two, we are going to look at how you can sanitize the data. Third, we are going to look at how you can also validate your forms. Okay, so we are doing three things in this video. We are doing form validation, form submission using post, and then we're also looking at the logic of handling multiple requests, and also seeing how we can validate our data. So let's jump in and start. So I'm just going to go to my my htdocs. So go on desktop. So on desktop, I have the htdoc shortcut. Double click it, open, and then our folder has been PHP YouTube series, and then the folder I'm just going to have created is for this lesson 6. Okay, so lesson 6, I have this file I've created, and I went ahead, I opened it in VS Code. So you can see it is blank in VS Code. Okay, so we're just going to start by reminding ourselves where we stop. And to do this, we are going to do a simple challenge that I gave in the last video. So the last video, I told you to do a simple form with a search input, where you input and then you get back the keyword, so that we remind ourselves of how do we submit data using the gate method. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by initializing the HTML. Okay, just like so. So with this HTML, I'm just going to create a form here. So just simply create a form. Okay, and here I'm just going to put an input search, and let me give a name, let me give it keyword. Just give this one keyword. I don't need an ID. Instead, let me call it a placeholder. So on this placeholder, I'm just going to say search here. Okay, and let's go ahead and also fill in the action, and we can also put in action and the method. So for the method, let's make it get, and then action. So by the way, if you don't put anything in action, it will submit this data in this verify. But I always suggest you put in this PHP script for submitting data in this page, which is echo. Okay, echo dollar. So it is dollar server, and here we put PHP self. Okay, so this one is if you print this one out, it is directing us to this page. I can just test that very fast so that you see what it does. It gives us back the file of index.html, So if I go to the browser, let me quickly go to the browser, and let's go to localhost. Let's go to localhost. So on the localhost, just a minute, wait for for the localhost. As we are waiting, we can just be doing some other things. Okay, so here we have specified two things you have to remember very well: the action. So here we are telling it to submit in this very page, not any other page. And then the method of submitting the data is get. Okay, and then in our input we need two things. The first one is to give this name. Actually, this name is the most important. And then down, I'm just going also to give another button. So I can use a button or input. Let me use button type submit. And here you can just see search. Okay, and let me also give it a name, and I can give it a name called search button. Now let's go and see now this keyword. We want to receive it. So on top here we are going to receive let me first see if we have access to localhost. Let's go to lesson 6, and you can see what it prints out. It prints out the directory of index.php. So here instead, let's receive our data. So on top here we are going to receive the dollar keyword. So I can just create a new variable called keyword. I can receive a variable called keyword, and I'm just going to get it in the post, in the get. So $get keyword. Okay, so to remind you very well, so we are getting this. So this get is the one which is storing our value from here. So when you get a form and you submit data from gate, the gate has access to all these values. Okay, and it uses the name attribute on the input to store that value. So they use this key to store the value in the form input. Okay, so this data that we're going to be entering is going to be stored under this key, and then we can use that key to access that data here. Okay, so we have this data right now. So now we can print it out. So down here below the form, I can put maybe H4, which says you have searched. It says you have searched for, and then let's echo. So I'm just going to do this PHP, and let's echo here dollar keyword. Okay, so it will echo out this keyword, and this dollar keyword is getting it from here. Okay, so if we go in the browser and I refresh, I will see an error. So you can see warning, undefined an array key keyword, and you can see here we don't have this keyword anywhere. So to remove that, okay, to remove that, you could, of course, we could just simply submit data here, but if we wanted, we can remove it using one thing. So you can first write an if statement, that if is set, okay, if is set $post, dollar post, and the one I want to check is I want to check for submit. It is search button. So why do we need to do this if statement? Okay, so let me just move this inside here. Okay, so what it means that when it was here before putting it, let me first leave it down here and we look at this error. So at this point it is showing us it is undefined because we haven't put this data here and we haven't even submitted anything. And we can try to check if this button has been clicked. So we can only display or define this figure when this value has been clicked. Okay, so to do that we use isSet. So isSet is just the way we do in JavaScript, like event listener or on click. So isSet checks if the button search button has been clicked, and if it has been clicked, then it can define a variable. So we want to define this variable only and only when the submit button has been clicked. Okay, so if I do this and I refresh, this error should go now. Okay, so now we have a second error which says you have searched for warning and defined the variable in this. So the second error right now, it is not about this one. The second error is that now we have a variable we are trying to output down here, but it is not there. Okay, so there are two ways to solve this. So the first one would be coming on top here and initialize this keyword with an empty string. So we could just come here and we say keyword is equal to an empty string, as simple as that. This should solve the problem. Okay, or let me first take it back so that we have the problem. So the second way we would solve this would be coming here and we use the null coalescing operator. So right now this value is null or it is empty. That's why it is giving us this undefined variable. They are not seeing it anywhere. So but we can give it a fallback. We can just say it will be keyword, but if it is null, just give it an empty string. So we can use this double question mark, which this one means null coalescing operator. Okay, by the way, if there is any topic you want to understand, we made an update. I made an update on the code brief. Last time we talked about code brief. Let me just first go to this code brief. Okay, so I made an update. So right now we have been only asking for assignments, but I updated it, and more in the version 1.5 we have whereby actually you can ask for the detailed description about a certain topic. So for instance, if you want to understand more about the null coalescing operator and maybe it is your first time to hear it, you could just come here and instead of generating the coding challenge, you can generate a summary about a topic you want. And then here you can choose PHP, and here is put null coalescing operator. Okay, let's just ask about this. I'm not sure the spelling of coalescing. I don't know. Coalescing. Let's first see this one. Null coalescing operator. Anyways, let's just see what it will turn back. So we updated the version. You can now get a summary description. Okay. So you can see here they say the null coalescing operator is a new feature in PHP 7 which allows you to safely access values that may be undefined. It does this by returning the first value that is not null. For example, let's say you have an array of values and you want to access the first value that is not null, you can do this with the null coalescing operator, like so. So they have this value, and you can see here the first item is null here, and they are using this value and use question mark, and you give a fallback. Okay, so that's how you use this null coalescing operator. Okay, so the null coalescing operator is very handy, and if we now run back to our code, the error is gone. So it is up to you what you want to use. They are actually a bit the same. Here this one sets the fallback to an empty string, or you could define an empty string in the first place here. Okay, that is great. Let's move on. So we have our search keyword. Now we can safely put it down here. So let's just come here and type in something. So I'm just going to type in smartphones. I want to buy a smartphone, and I search in a smartphone search. Wow, so our data is nowhere, but I can see it appended here. Okay, I can see appended here, keyword is equal smartphone on the search, and the search button is equal to empty. Okay, so now let's give we have this search button. Let me make sure I have clicked I have this very name up here. That one is very, very common to have a wrong spelling here. Keyword is gate. Keyword, let's first see the name is keyword. Okay, so I have if is set dollar post. You see guys, are you seeing this? This is where the problem is, not post. The method we are handling is gate. So here is $gate. Okay, $gate search button. Let's do it again, refresh, and you can see we have smartphones. Okay, let's search for something else. Let's search for you can just search for Samsung. Samsung. Okay, click, you can see the here, and you can even see it is attached here on top here. Okay, so this is really great. This is really really great. Okay, so this is how we implemented the gate method. This is how we implemented the gate method. Okay, so one more thing we can do, as you can see, we can also tell where does this request is coming from. So for instance, we have done one nice thing. We have went ahead and checked if this button has been clicked, which is good. So we can go ahead and also check if the method that has been sent is gate. Okay, to be very sure of data you are receiving, you can check whether the method that you have sent the data is the gate method. Okay, so we can just go on top here. Okay, so on top here, we can, before putting this one, we can write another if statement. Okay, we can write another if statement here. If dollar server, so we are accessing the server, and then the server want actually the request method. Okay, so we can just access the request method and check if it is equal to gate. Okay, so we can see if it is equal to gate, and if we wanted, we could also put this button on top here. We do that at once. Okay, let's first do one. I will show you in a minute. So here we could go ahead and do this, and then we do this second if inside. Okay, so we now do this. Okay, So if the request method is get, so we can do this, else we can echo out that the request method is not get. So else echo request method is not get. Okay, is not get. Yeah, as simple as that. So we can just run now this if statement, and to verify it is working, we can first come here, we do what we have done, search, and it is working. So let me just alter this form. Instead of saying the HTTP method is get, let me just put something else. Let me put maybe just like that. And if I just come back, put smartphones, it does not work. Okay, a minute, they just refresh. Okay, let's refresh, put smartphones. Oh, actually let's just put post here, not put. It might be setting us for wrong data. So let me just simply refresh again, put Samsung, and this time you can see it has not put a here's stuff, and it's telling us the request method is not get. Okay, the request method is not get, and that's why you see it did that. Okay, so the request method is not get, and that's why we are able to actually target that data here. Okay, so that is very nice if statement. But now there is no need of putting these two ifs. We can actually combine this on top here. So for instance, if we want to check if the request method is equal to get, and at the same time they get the search button to be clicked, just cut this, and on top here after the this, okay, I can just put and, okay, and then put that. So this will search for both of them at the same time. Okay, so if I just come here now, I don't need to put this inside here, so we can put the if statement at the same time like that. Would have saved one more line of code to ourselves and made a solid if statement. So now if we test again, just refresh, don't resubmit, let me just do that. Okay, so let's still do this. It will say the request method is not get. Let's change this to, let's change our form back to get. So let's change here and we put back get. Okay, so put get. I want to refresh this page. Let me just try to go back. So the request method is not get. Yeah, really. Let's first check. We have a get here. Okay, so on the if statement we are checking if the request method is equal to get. Okay, and the if is set the submit button. Oh, so we don't need, I think at this point it will not serve what we want because this button has not been clicked yet. Okay, so I think the other if statement was better. Let's first try to go back to that if statement of checking, first checking this one, because as you can see, if we checked both of them at the same time, that means it will have to check this and this at the same time, which might make sense if it is the first time submitting the form. Okay, if it's the first time submitting the form. Okay, we can just leave it like this. Let me go back here and let me put this to back to gate. Okay, so let's just now check, refresh. You can see everything is okay, and let me just put in Samsung and it is working perfectly. Okay, so now let's do another form. Okay, let's do another form here, and now this one is going to be for maybe signing. This one, let's just put h2 here. Let's call this one sign up. Okay, let's just say it is sign up, and let us also submit the data in the same file. So instead of input search, we are going to put two inputs. Okay, we are going to have input text. Okay, we are going to have input text, and its name is going to be maybe username. Okay, let's say username, and let's also give it a placeholder saying enter username. Okay, and let's create another one. Let's create another one here. Input email. Okay, input email, and the name is going to be email, and placeholder is also going to be enter email. Okay, so we can just say enter email, and lastly let's put password. So enter email. So down here I'm just going to say input password. So input password, and the name is going to be password. Okay, and ID is going to be not ID but placeholder. So you just fill this one with a placeholder, and the placeholder will be enter password. Okay, so as simple as that. We make sure all our inputs, they have names. That is very important. And then our submit, right now this is not a search button. We can now put submit. So this one, let's call it submit button. Submit button. And here just say submit. You just say submit. As simple as that. So, and then we are going to get all this data. We will just output it down here. Okay, so let me just write this data here, and I'm just going to put here h2 first, which say user details. Okay, and down here let me just say h4 also. So h4, we have username. Okay, we have username, and we'll be receiving our username PHP. Okay, we'll be receiving our username and say echo dollar username. Okay, so, and of course we can say if it is empty, then put null. Okay, we can just define it like that. If it is empty, do the fallback of null, and just copy this on the new line, just like that. Go down here. Okay, so we have username, we have email, okay, and password. Okay, let me remove this last one, and then here there is going to be email, and password is going to be password. Okay, is going to be password, the word password. Okay, so this is we are displaying our data here. and we're ensuring that we put this fallback of an empty string as the default value if this is not defined. So to receive this data here, one, we can first test if it is a get method, and again we can check if this submit button has been clicked. So inside here you can see we already have checked if the server request is the get, and then we receive data. Now the fact that we have also another if, this one was for the search button, we can do another if. Okay, we can do another if is set. Now this time is not a search button but a submit button. Okay, and by the way, be careful as you're writing this keyword here. This should match exactly with the form, this one. So just copy this, avoid typos, and then paste it here. So you should just make sure you are receiving it in the nice way. So here we can define all our variables starting with the username. So I can just see user name. Okay, and I can go ahead and get for all other values or variables, for instance email, and then lastly password. And how am I able to type in two places? I'm using Ctrl D or Command D on a Mac. So Ctrl D will select multiple occurrences of this word. Okay, if I say Ctrl D, it will select it in multiple places and you can replace it at once. Okay, so after you have these ones captured, let's go and test out. So refresh. We must have two forms now. So you have the search form and this one. Okay, so for instance, if you enter something here and you submit, you'll see you will have only data for that, and these ones are empty and there are no errors. And if we input data, let me take back a minute to refresh. Let me just put in some data. So here let me put in this email, let me put any email, and password, let me put any password, submit. Okay, so you can see our details have been populated down here. Okay, so you can see this is nice, receiving specific data, and we have done a logic of actually accepting this data very well. Okay, we are saying if the submit button is clicked, just get all these variables from the form, and it is getting them from here on top. So the first problem we have with this method is that all the data we submit is in the URL here on top. So you can see your username, password, and everything is in the URL. Okay, so that one is a really security problem. You cannot submit your data and it is in the URL. That one is typically very, very risky. Okay, so this method is just normally used for searches. If you, for instance, you have a search, okay, if you have a search, this one is normally the best one to use. The GET HTTP request is used for searches. Let's just test one of the famous e-commerce here, like Jumia. So if you go to Jumia right now and you try to search, let's search for Samsung, maybe Samsung phones. So if you check in the browser here URL, you will see they have a query parameter here in the browser which says $Q is equal Samsung plus phones. So this text here, you can see it here. So you can see they're using a GET. They're using a GET to get this data here. And then they go ahead, they send this keyword, they receive it, put in a variable, and then they can send that one in the database. Okay, they send this keyword in the database, and that's why they are able to sort out all these phones. Okay, great. So at least we have seen. So the get method is not a good method for sending data that is for entering into the database, more especially if it is saving it like user data. It is very essential that you securely add this data to the database. So how do we do that? That is where the post method comes in. So instead of using instead of using the get, okay, we can just use the post method. Okay, so instead here we can just go ahead and say post. Okay, and when we say post now, the things will change. Okay, so first you will see that our logic here will not work, because we checked the request method and we said if it is get, then we are receiving all this data. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to go ahead and in this else we can do else if. Okay, we have to be very sure of the request method. In fact, I'm just going to write another if statement, so you can remove this else part. Let me remove this else part here, and I'm just going to write another if statement. Okay, instead I'm just going to duplicate this one. Okay, I'm just going to duplicate this one for time of saving time. So if is server, so here we are going to check the server request. So instead of saying the server request to be get, we need to check if it is post. Okay, so we can receive data from the post, and we are so sure the data we are receiving is from the post. And then right now we don't have the search one, we can remove it, and we can check which button has been clicked. So we can check $post. This time, instead of using get, we check for is set post submit button. Okay, if you check in the form now, this form is no longer a get form, it is now a post form. The fact that we have changed this method. Okay, so this button, we check it on the post. Okay, so we change all these figures from we can change this to post. Okay, so this we can check if the submit button in the post form has been clicked, and then from there we can take in the post username, email, and password. Okay, so now the difference is right now, let me just refresh. So I'm just going to go remove all this data, and now let's refresh. Now if we send this information, let me just send this information here. So let me just put my username and email, and then down here let's put this one and click submit. Now the first thing is, you see there is nothing in the URL. Nothing, there is nothing that has been appended here in the URL. But down here, even let's see, the details have not been picked. Okay, let's check that. So we filled in the data. Okay, define this username, password, and email. And we say the dollar. Okay, the spelling here, guys, it is $post. There is this underscore here. Always check your stuff very well, guys. Be careful as you're accessing these things. Okay, so some small type like that one can cause a big error. Okay, so let's check again the second time. Refresh. I don't want to submit. Just simply just come here, refresh, and let's add in the data. Okay, just add in the data, submit. So the first thing you realize, there is nothing appended to the URL. but down here we have all our data actually received very correctly. So this is nice. We are using the post method to submit data. Actually, the post method is same as the get method, but the difference is that in the post method, data is sent securely. Okay, in the post method, data is sent securely, and in the get method, data is appended in the URL. So that is the difference between those two methods. Otherwise, the way we receive data and how we handle data is exactly the same. Okay, so the one more step we want now to go ahead is how do we validate the data that we are receiving here. Okay, so let me just explain a few points on data validation. So we have at least talked about we have seen how to receive data now in the post method. We have even checked if the request HTTP request is the post method, and we have also checked if the submit button has been clicked. So those ones are really important before you submit your data. So the next topic we are going to check is data validation. So it is important to perform some basic data validation and sanitization checks before saving data to the database to ensure that the data is correct, consistent, and safe. Okay, so we are going now to spend the next minutes just doing data validation. We want to validate the data that we are allowing to go inside our database or to be saved. We make sure that data is secure, correct, and consistent. Okay, so there are a number of things that we check for. These are not all of them, but these are some of them that we check for. First, we make sure that the values we are sending are not empty values. Okay, we first check and we see that the values we are sending are not empty values. Okay, and then another one is white spaces. So we check to remove all the white spaces. For instance, trim any leading or trailing white spaces from the input data to avoid issues with inconsistent data. For example, if a user accidentally adds a space or after their name, it could cause issues when searching or sorting the data. So as you can know, you save that data in the database, but at the beginning it has a space. So if you are searching for the user in the database, that user will not be found. Only a simple thing like that can just invalidate all our data in the database. So another one is data types. So you can check that the data type being saved is correct format. For instance, if it was a date, we could make sure that it is a correct date format. Okay. Another one normally that is checked is length. So you could check that the data being saved is within the expected length limits. For example, if you are saving a username, you may want to limit the length to avoid the usernames that could cause display issues. Okay, so the people who want to put all the long usernames, you could just restrict that, and those who put very short ones, you could also restrict that. Then the last one is sanitization. Okay, so you have to sanitize the data to prevent SQL injection attacks or other security vulnerabilities. For example, using prepared statements, of which you're going to see in the future, and then also using, for instance, sanitizing data using the HTML special chars and even filtering those values. Okay, so as we are going to do data validation and the sanitization, there are some functions we are going to use in the space. So the first one is the trim function. So the trim function is called on the input data, which removes any white spaces from the beginning and the end of the string. Another one is the strip slashes. The strip slashes function is used to remove any backslashes that has been added to the input data. This is done by preventing injection attacks, where an attacker could potentially insert malicious code inside the input. Then the last one is the HTML special char. So this function is called on the input data, which converts any special characters in the input data to their HTML entities. This is done to prevent the cross-site scripting attacks, where an attacker could potentially execute malicious code in the user's browser. Okay, so if we are to, by the way, this is where code brief can shine. So if you want to understand more maybe about the trim function, you could just come here on the code brief and you put in that function. Okay, so you could just come here. You see we had checked this null coalescing operator. Just come here, generate summary, and choose PHP and ask about we are asking about the trim function. Okay, so trim, we just say trim function. Even if you only say PHP trim or just say trim like that, it should be able to understand it. Okay, so you can see now here generating, please wait, and you can see PHP trim is a function used to remove white space or other characters from the beginning and the end. And they went ahead and they gave us an example. For instance, you have a string which has a space here and a space at the end, and there they're saying trim this string, the output is like this. So you can see you can learn very well with this tool. Okay, I find it so much, and me myself has saved me a ton of time, because it can really save me a ton of time to do this. And by the way, you can go ahead and you can export as an image by taking this. Just simply click this button. It should be able to save for you a PNG image of the screenshot of that code. Okay, and yeah, you can share with your friends, or you can just put it in your notes. Okay, you can see it really takes a very nice screenshot and you can use it. Okay, so that is nice. Let's go back to where we are. So as we are doing this validation, now the first thing as we are validating the data is to check for the empty values. So if you remember very well, here we said we first check for empty values. So if you can check our form right now, there is no any validation about the empty values. If someone came and just clicked this one, it will submit the data. So data has been submitted, but there is nothing. We don't want that scenario whereby someone can submit empty data. So at this point, I want to say, if in production, there are many ways to do form validation. So the first one is HTML5 form validation by using the required keyword. So this could be just simply putting just required on these inputs. So if I came here and I add the required keyword, so let me just try to type here, and let's add required. Okay, just like that. If you add required, this is HTML5 way of saying I need this form validated. Okay, so in production you could just do like a simple check like that one. Okay, but of course we do not trust the HTML5 validation. If right now I try to submit, they will bring me this error. Okay, this for instance, they just put a password. You see, they will just tell us that this value is required. Okay, they could just tell us that this input field is required, and they will not allow you to send anything. If you put in any figure here, you see this one, this field is required. If you put in here and you submit this, please fill out this field. So you see, this is HTML that is working the validation. For now, we don't want it, so I'm just going to do Ctrl+Z to remove it. Okay, so another way is using JavaScript, of which I will not bother to show you right now. We are not doing JavaScript, but you can do form validation using JavaScript. Okay, but right now we are going to do form validation using PHP. Okay, so the first thing we can do, we can check for the empty values. Okay, we can check for the empty values. So we go where the request method. So for the get, we are done with it. Okay, I'm just going to be checking for this one. Okay, so the first thing we can do is we can first define these values. We initialize them to be empty values. So at first these values are empty. So on top here, you can go ahead and define username and for instance email. Okay, and then password equal to an empty string. So we can initialize them as empty string, and if we do that, we will not be needing this null coalition operator at that point, but let's just leave it there. So at this point, you can see we have defined them to be empty string, and at the same time is we want to create an error. Just we're going to see it in a minute. So here we could say, for instance, now where we are receiving the data here. So instead of defining this data, let me first comment it out. We could say something like if it is not empty. So here we use the empty function. So the empty function returns true if a value is empty, okay, or null. So here we could just check if it is not empty. So first of all, if it is not empty username, okay, we check if this username is not empty, so we can go ahead and define it. Okay, just go ahead and define it. This, it is dollar username. If it is not empty, then we can define it here. Okay, else if it is empty, then we should give an error. For now, let's just say echo username is required. Username is required, just like so. Username is required. So now if we go ahead here, if we go ahead, let me refresh. So let's not put anything here, just click and you can see on top here username is required because this value was empty. If we put some figure, submit, we'll see how to take away this username is required. Okay, so if it is not empty, it should give this one. Actually, by the way, instead of using this username, what we are checking is this one. Okay, we are checking the post username here, because at this point here the username is empty. Remember, we initialized it here, so we cannot use this one here. We have to use the post username. Okay, so guys, that is a bit something you have to understand very well. Here in this bracket, use $post username instead of just checking the username, because the username initially is just defined as empty, so it will always just be returning empty here. Okay, so if it is not empty, this post username, then set username to this post username, else you echo username is required. So if we now try to run it again, you can see if I submit, username is required, and if I put in some data, that error is gone. Okay, that is great. Now that means all of them we are going to perform this check. Okay, we are going to perform this check here. So we could just come here and we just check for all these ones. Okay, just do this, copy that. Okay, and lastly the last one, just paste this. So the first one is if it is not empty, so here instead of username is email. Okay, So here is also email. So if it's not empty post email, then set email $email to this post email. Else email is required. Okay, email is required, and this one is also password. So let's simply put here password. Okay, is that the word password? No. So let's do Ctrl Z, and let's write the good password. Okay, so if it is not empty password, if the password is not empty, go ahead and fill in this $password with this value, else echo password is required. So if we go right now, submit, we should have username is required, email is required, and password is required. But now we would want to put these errors under these inputs. Okay, we would want to display these errors under these user inputs. It gives the sense of a person where this input is right now. Okay, so what we could do is, instead of echoing it out, we could save it in a variable, and then we come and output the variable down here. Okay, so the first step is to create here the variables to hold the errors for each of these inputs. For instance, we can just create for the username, we can say it is a name error. Okay, and then for the email, we can initialize an email error, and then for the password, we can also initialize for the password error. Just as simple as that. And we'll initialize them to be empty at first. Okay, at first they have no errors, so they want to generate these errors after. So here where we have echo username is required, this one should be $name error. So the name error should be equal to that. So you can see we are saving this we are saving this output, or the error, we are saving it in the name error. Then we do the same for all of this one. So this one becomes email, $email error, $email error, and is equal to email is required. Okay, and then if not empty, so password, we also save it in the password error. Just say password error and save the password is required. So after saving these ones, we have to have a way of displaying these errors to the user. Okay, just as simple as that. Save this thing, save the errors in these variables, and then we can use these variables down. Okay, so we can just scroll down to where we have the input. So we would want our error to be down here. Okay, under each of the inputs, we would want to have an error there. So I'm just going to put a p tag with an error class, just like that, and then I'm just going to show the error here. So I'm just going to put $PHP, and just like that, and here I'm just going to echo $name error. Okay, so here I'm just going to echo name error. Okay, and at first it is not there, that's why it will have no problem, and we do this for all of them. So for the email, and then for the password, so here is going to be the not password but the email error, and then the lastly is going to be this password error. Here just put password error. Okay, so we have all the errors showing up now. The only thing, let me style this one, this error, to be red. So let me just go to this file on top here, let me put style tag. I'm not going to complicate the CSS right now, just put the error class and give it color red. Okay, just to show us that really it is an error. Okay. Okay, so just go ahead and now refresh. I don't want to submit the previous data, just you can see here we have our inputs now. Okay, and the errors will show up down here. So let's just try to submit the data minus entering anything. So you can see on the username is required, email is required, password is required. So the errors are really coming out. You can see they are really red, and a user can really tell that he needs to enter the data here. So you can just go ahead and enter all his data, and now at this point click on submit. Errors are gone, data is submitted. Okay, so that is really nice. We have seen how to execute this if here. We have checked for the empty values. So in case you wanted to do more validation by, for instance, checking the length of an input, you could just go inside here and do all these validations. For now, I'm trying to keep it simpler. In the we are going to look at one advanced form validation in the future. For now, let's just handle at this level, whereby we are just checking for empty values. We are trying to get how this validation or the validation thing works. I don't want to complicate it for beginners. Okay, just let's keep it simple and nice. Okay, so right now this is already looking great. So now one more thing we are going to add in before we end this video is let me first remove these ones. One more thing you're going to add in is sanitizing our data. So we said we sanitize using three functions: the trim function, okay, the strip slashes, and then finally we use this HTML special characters. So let's just go down here and create a function that will help us sanitize these values. Okay, so I'm just going to go down here and create a function. Okay, if you didn't attend the function class, you can just go and check the video for functions. Okay, in the just simply check in that playlist. You will see where we did PHP functions, and you'll be good to go. So you just create a function called sanitize. That is its purpose, is to sanitize the data. So here we can just say it will be sanitizing the data that will be passed in, and then down here we can just now start dealing with this data. So I can first trim it. So I can just first trim this data. So let's call the trim function on the data. Okay, so after getting this data trimmed, let's create another strip slashes. Now let's call strip slashes. Okay, and we'll also do strip slashes on the data. Now you might get confused of how I'm doing this. So this variable that I've got here has nothing to do with this data here. Okay, this data will come and will be input here. So I have data, and it is this one. After being trimmed is still called data. That's why I'm reusing data, just to remember that I'm just always receiving data. So this data here that we are passing in will just come once, enter here, and then we have it here as the same data after being trimmed. Now we pass this data here in the strip slashes. They remove all the slashes, and finally we have this data on HTML special chars. So HTML special chars, and you can also push in the data. Okay, then afterwards we have done this. We want to return our data. Okay, want to return our data so that we can use it up there. So how are we going to use this function? So this function gets the data, the input data, and then trims it, removes the slashes, and also converts all the HTML entities in it, and then it returns back the data. Okay, so that is great. So what we can do is we can just go up here. So where we are saving the username, this username we are saving, we can call it inside the sanitize function. Okay, so we can call this sanitize function. We sanitize this data before we save it in the username. Okay, so sanitize here, save it in the username. Come down here, sanitize this one before we save it in the database. Sanitize. So you can see we are using our function to sanitize all these figures. Okay, so even this one, sanitize. Okay, sanitize, just like that. So because this is the data we are entering, this we are receiving this post password, that's the data. We sanitize it. After sanitizing it, then we save it in the password. Okay, then after that, down here where we are printing them out, we have these emails thing here going on. Let's try to sanitize these things here. So these ones also, let them sanitize them. So just simply say sanitize. Ensure everyone is sanitized, guys. So sanitize, and then even this one, let's sanitize. Okay, so now we have all these things are now set very well. We are using our sanitize function. So we are going to start now testing it under different conditions. Okay, so the first sanitize we are going to test for the trim is if the trim is working. So how to test that one? Let's go up here and let's enter John, and then at the beginning let me add more spaces, and at even last let me add spaces. Okay, so for these other ones, let's just enter nice things. Now if I submit, down here I should see John Baptist having no spaces. Okay, so you can see there is no space. I think we should also test before sanitizing and after sanitizing. Would not test that, but you can see spaces have been removed. Let me test now for the slashes. So I'm just going to write John, and inside here I'm just going to put some slashes. Okay, just put some slashes here like so. Let's run this. So for these other ones, let me put the nice ones. So go down here, submit, and let's see. And you can see for some reason the slashes are still there. Is that the slashes they talk about? Let me see. Is this the slash? Let me check these slashes, like the backslash. Let me just put in here, submit. Oh, so it is the forward slashes. Okay, they are the ones which are harmful. These ones, the forward slashes, but you can see they have been removed. So we just simply put in these ones. Okay, and at first let's put also more space. So it is going to go ahead and remove all these slashes and the space. So you can see our value here is very well removed. The slashes and the spaces have been gone. So the last one we are going to test is HTML special chars, and it is for the SQL injections. So let's just put an input with a JavaScript. So we are putting in a JavaScript here, which says it has here some href, and we are alerting you have been hacked. Okay, we are alerting you have been hacked. So let's see how it is going to handle this one. So let me enter email and some password. Let's go down here and submit. So it should show us something like this. Yes, So this is nice. You can see these the if the hacker wanted to execute the script, now it is very impossible, because all the HTML entities, all those symbols have been converted into HTML entities, which is really, really great. So there is no way how a hacker now can actually target us. Okay, so this is really great, and the whole validation now is really great and it is looking good. Okay, so it has really been a good video. We have explored a number of things. We have done a lot of checks together. We have sanitized the data. We have tested all these ones. Okay, so please, at this point, if this content is making sense to you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, share them with others so that we can you can support us. And then if you are happy, you can also go ahead and do our front end course. So not a front end, the back end course. If you go on this hub, you can just always go to the coding school. We have a number of courses here, and you can enroll for this backend Laravel course. Okay, so this course here, you can just simply come here and enroll for this course. Okay, we just get your details and we'll be in touch with you. So you can see it is here, novice to professional of a backend developer course. It is the one that we are promoting right now. Just get in touch with us and we can just really do this course, whether online or if you are offline, anything you want, we have it online and offline. Okay, so will be good. And then also you can use this code brief. I developed this tool so that you can get more out of it. I added more features. You can see now you can get summary about anything you want to learn, and you can even get out the code snippets. You see, you even have the code, how that function is used. Anything really, whether you want anything maybe to do with Python and you are learning something to do with Python or React. You imagine if I wanted to learn about React and I put in a component. Okay, they just say I want to understand what a component is. Okay, I can just ask and it will tell me what is a React component is. And you can see React is a popular JavaScript library for building user interfaces, and they went ahead and gave you all these things here. Guys, it even gave you a sample of a component. Okay, React component are self-contained units that represent user interface element. They can be rebuilt throughout the operation, blah blah. And here is an example of a React component, and you can see they wrote for you a class component. I'm just so much happy about this whole thing. Okay, and you can even export as a PDF. Okay, whether you want a PNG or a PDF, it will still give you it, and you can have a look at it. So the PDF is here, and is just a screenshot. We'll see how we can work on whether you can just copy this data in the future. But of course, if you want to copy the data and use it, you can simply copy it here and use it. Okay, so this is great. I like it, and you can learn more Vue.js. I'm going to add more languages soon, so you'll be checking out the tool. Thank you so much for watching the video. It has been JB from This Is Hub. Thank you so much for watching.